Welcome everybody to the first installment of 3 and Out. I'm your host Marco Barron with my co-host Eric Wallman.
Woo!
And our first guest in show history, Big Alex Wallman. Give him a round of applause. Okay, light crowd tonight. No worries, we got a packed house, we got a full show for you. We are scrapping the rundown. We're moving to a video-based show. We're going to give you in-depth analysis week in, week out. But first, we're going to break down the 11th draft in Hank Fraley history. And we're going to find out if our 3-time champion has what it takes to take gold again. Let's go to the first round first. And then we'll talk about our steals of the draft, our reaches of the draft, and maybe dig into each team a little bit. We'll kind of get a feel for how this draft went. Eric, what are your initial thoughts?
Well, before we get into the first round, I really want to say I thought overall, I think everybody did pretty well in this draft. I think it was nobody came out, I know some guys at the end of the draft were saying they didn't feel too good about their teams, but overall I thought people picked well. There weren't too many boneheaded picks. We'll get into some later. But overall, nice job, guys. I was pretty impressed.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that sentiment, and I think Ben said it well when, the fact that a quarterback didn't come off the board until at least the third round seemed like we were making progress there. Might add some reaches at that position. However, overall, I thought that generally speaking, everyone was pretty competent.
Did pretty well. People drafted to our format, which was nice to see.
That's right. I think we're all finally getting the importance. It's 0.5 PPR, but let's not forget the importance of those volume-driven running backs. Okay? We're going to talk to Alex Wallman soon. But first, let's talk about the first round. Any shockers? Anything that kind of blew your mind?
Let's get the for me, my favorite pick of the first round has to be Lamar Miller, going number 5 overall. As we all know, Ben and Ryan Dennis executed a trade pre-draft, swapping positions in the first and second round. Ben moving down, and it was later revealed to us that his intention of trading down was to secure Lamar Miller. Questionable move, if you ask me.
Really questionable.
For me, if you want Lamar Miller, you just take him where you have him. But he wasn't going to get him anyway if you were picking him at 5.
Yeah, and I mean, I'll be honest. I said this last night. I was not even remotely thinking about Lamar Miller. I was 100% banking on Matt taking DeAndre Hopkins, which honestly wouldn't have been that terrible. No. I'm taking David Johnson, and Lamar's free to go. But it's such a Ben thing to do, to trade down in the first.
He got a little too ahead of himself. He thought he was one step ahead of everybody, and he
obviously made the trade on draft day. Last minute move.
Anything to make a trade, this guy will pull off.
This guy is, he has a problem.
So I think it definitely backfired, and clearly he was not happy about his first pick.
And then I think that really kind of threw him through a loop for the rest of the draft. I mean, he was stuck with Hopkins at 9. I know he hated that one.
Yeah.
And then when you start off like that with a pick you just hate, I think it's hard to feel good about your team the rest of the way.
Yeah,
he was rattled.
And I think he'll echo those same feelings. So I don't think we're offending him or anyone else by saying this. I think his team has a bit of a stench. It's just a lot of bad juju right now.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what happens when you try to get too cheeky.
Yeah.
This is what happens. So Lamar Miller goes at 5. No surprises 1 through 4.
Mm-hmm.
Do you like Zolby taking a tight end in the middle of the first round with stud wide receivers on the board and stud running backs?
I was hoping we would go there because I hated that pick. I mean, for my sake, I loved it. I remember talking to you, I was saying, God, I hope somebody takes Gronk before I'm up, because I wanted one of those elite running backs, one of those elite wide receivers still on the board for me, and obviously Gronk getting taken ahead helps out that cause. My feelings on Gronk, I feel like there was value in tight ends later this year.
I'm very mad on him.
I mean, yeah, he could pop off for his 1,200 yards, his 12 touchdowns.
But now, honestly, it feels more like 1,000 yards. 10
Yeah, because he's going to miss a game or two or maybe half the year.
In the first round, I don't know if you're getting a profit there. So
yeah.
Personally, my feelings on Gronk do not change at all year to year. You know what you're getting. He's an elite tight end. He's a freak athlete. He's got Tom Brady thrown to him. But am I taking him at whatever 7? Absolutely.
I want safe,
exactly.
high floors in the first round,
Right.
especially where I was at in the back end, I think. So I was happy Gronk was gone.
Right.
I was happy.
Next shocker of the round, for me at least, was Adrian Peterson to Nick with Todd Gurley and Ezekiel Elliott staring him right in the face.
Gurley got picked at 6, but Elliott, you're right.
You're right.
Elliott was on the board, as was Hopkins.
Okay.
Who AJ Green, who I was high on, Des Bryant, Allen Robinson, and Le'Veon Bell rounded out the first round.
You're right, they did swap picks there. Okay, I mean, I would probably say, again, we know my personality. I'm going upside. I'm going youth. I'm taking Ezekiel Elliott. You're behind probably one of the best offensive lines in NFL history.
Yeah.
The guy's got a pedigree. The competition behind him it's okay. Alfred Morse. He's not going to push him for cash passing duties, if that's a word.
No.
So I would like to catch up with Nick to see kind of what he's thinking from Adrian Peterson. Is he thinking 2,000 yards again? Is he thinking 15 touchdowns? It's a guy that doesn't catch any balls. I mean, he'll be lucky to catch 30 balls this year. We're playing PPR.
He caught 30 last year. I think in our format he was still a top 5 running back. He had a very good year. He led the league in rushing, I believe. He had almost 1,500 yards. He had 11 touchdowns, something like that.
Yeah, 31 years old now.
He does that every year.
He's getting up there in mileage. And do you want to be that guy who takes him the year he starts to break?
I get that.
You hate to be that guy.
I get that. But if you watched him last year, you saw him play, he is still very spry, very athletic. Still has the burst. He doesn't look like a guy that's wearing down. He's not. Like, if this was Fat Boy Eddie Lacy, age 31, wearing down, fine. If this was, Jerome Bettis, Fat Boy wearing down, age 33, okay.
That's very reasonable.
Peterson said just that he's an ant. You look at him, he doesn't look old. He still looks fit. I think it's.
No, I hear you, and I think it kind of set the tone for Nick's draft, which was volume.
He did go a lot of volume.
He's looking for guys who are just going to touch the ball. And that really is shown through rounds 1 through 7, exclusively running back, wide receiver, just looking for volume. And that's really what gets in the championships. I don't want to hurt your feelings, but we talked about it briefly. This guy had an amazing season last year, going 12-1, I believe, during the regular season. 12-1. Only to lose to a guy that drafted Melvin Gordon, Amari Cooper, who was basically useless for the second half of the year, Demaryius Thomas, who finished outside the top 10. Not a bad season. Certainly not what he paid for, though. Matt Forte, who had an okay season. He had one difference maker, and it was Danny Woodhead. But this, again, it's volume for him. Maybe that's what wins championships.
It was a heartbreaker to lose that one. I mean, especially in a year where you have Julio Jones, Devontae Freeman, and David Johnson. It stung.
Eric Decker,
Martavis Bryant. I mean, the list goes on and on. But I'm coming back hot this year. Coming back with a vengeance.
That is what the draft results tell us so far. We're gonna look at his team a little bit later. First, let's finish off the remainder of the round. Nothing really surprised me. I think Cody was really happy to get AJ Green where he did, looking at 170 to 200 targets available. Can someone step up in that number 2 role? Is a Brandon LaFell stepping up? Is Tyler Boyd stepping up? I don't know. With Eifert missing time, I think he loves AJ Green right there. I think Eric loves Des Bryant right there. Tell us a little bit about your thought process, though, because I'm sure you were between him and Allen Robinson, who were probably the last full-fledged first-rounders on the board.
Yes. A lot of mocks I had done. I'll let you into my little mock life. I had been going for a receiver in both that round 1 spot and a receiver on the way back. So really, at my spot at 12, I was hoping AJ Green would fall, but I was content taking either Dez or Robinson.
Right.
I think Dez, I know what I'm going to get in a healthy season. Allen Robinson I do love, but he's only done it once for me, so I'm going to go just the safer guy. Better quarterback, better rapport. He's been in the offense forever. The line is better. Only thing you have concern with Dez is the foot from last year.
Yeah, it's the injuries that catch up.
But he's looked great in the first 2 preseason games. And then on the way back, I was really hoping Marshall or Allen would fall to me at the 3rd overall and 2nd. Obviously, that didn't happen, so I had to pounce on my first running back.
Yeah, and that I think that would have made you probably the most dangerous team after 2 had you landed a Marshall or Allen.
I would have been ecstatic if I landed Marshall. Allen I like too, but Marshall I really think is undervalued.
Yeah, if you look at the first, 2nd round combos, no one's really that scary.
Right.
And because of this format with 14 teams,
yeah.
So I think that would have been amazing. Jets probably scheduled to throw even more this year. There's really no reason why Brandon Marshall can't match his numbers next year. I think some people are getting a little skeptical.
That is his standard every year. 100 catches, 1,400 yards, double-digit teeth. That is what he does.
Every healthy season.
Every year.
Right.
Every year.
I've heard a little bit. I've heard some talk of maybe we're down on him a little bit this year, but listen, guys, the Jets are going to throw more than ever this year.
Yeah.
Even with that dominant defense, that's just the style that Chan Gailey wants to run. And I think, I agree with you, Dez over Allen. It's tough. And now, we've heard the book. Allen Robinson, 14 touchdowns. Is that sustainable?
Yeah.
Yes, he's a big play guy, but 29 of 35 touchdowns from playing from behind, and now with that defense.
That's the big thing for me. I think
that defense,
their game scripts can change. I think the defense is a lot better.
Right.
They added Jalen Ramsey, Miles Jack in the draft this year, and then they're getting the kid, the 1st-round pick last year, Dante Fowler back. So that's 3 impact
now
guys.
You got DBs left and right
they
now.
They bring in
gonna
Ivory
to
play a little ball control.
Right.
And I think Bortles. I'm not sold on Bortles yet.
I think it's more of a product of the game situation.
Great.
Honestly, I don't think Allen will disappoint. I have him elsewhere.
No.
I need to rely on him. But I'm thinking 7-8 touchdowns, call it 1,200 yards. I don't think you're going to be disappointed in the first round. But I don't think we're going to be seeing 1,500 yards, 14 touchdowns by any means. So we'll see. I think Ronnie loves Keenan Allen on the way back. People really like him this year. If this guy doesn't get injured, there's 650 targets to go around. Yeah. He's clearly the number 1 guy there. Antonio Gates is another year older.
Well, his pace from last year was just
totally
ridiculous.
Absurd.
I think he was on pace for 130 receptions before going down.
Absolutely.
But you have to be concerned because I think this is his 4th year in the league. He's played the most game. He's played less and less games each year as he's progressed.
It's the injury bug, and it's really what prevents him from being a first rounder.
Yeah.
We've got to see that over the full course season. We know he had a great rookie year. Yeah. Burned me a sophomore year. I think last year, obviously, his pace was tremendous. At this point, we're just looking at volume. I'm okay with that pick in the 2nd round. I like him over Brandon Cooks. I like him over the injury risk of Jordy and really the rest of the receivers. He's
I think he was the best receiver left there.
Great pick by Ronnie there. No fault.
Going back to being a product of the game situation, San Diego's going to play in a handful of shootouts.
Of course, I don't think that defense has gotten any better, to my knowledge. That still looks like a disaster on the West Coast. So, I agree. A lot of targets to go around. Socialist offense, but listen, he's the guy there. I think Ronnie's going to love that pick. Cody goes back-to-back with Cooks. I think you're going to get what you got last year. Nothing really there. LaShawn McCoy, we're going to come back to Alex now. Previously, looking like a guy who you're shooting for ceiling at this point. Now,
go get it, Pri.
It's probably my wife. Now, it was thinking, oh, he's going to get the volume. Carlos Williams is out of town. That offense just got better. All of a sudden, I mean, he's looking like a stud. I think he has top 5
I like
potential
McCoy.
right there.
You called me before picking him, like you did for every pick in the draft this year. Well, just to get my approval because, and I gave you the green light on McCoy, so congratulations for drafting another guy that I approve of. So.
Okay, so good start for you.
Well, I was pretty set on either him or Charles, and Charles coming off 220 ACLs, McCoy being in a heavy run offense with Carlos Williams now out of the picture. They got Gillespie.
Yeah,
backing him up.
Mike Gillespie, or however you say it, not a guy to be concerned about. I think if anything, it's McCoy finally gobbles up those touchdowns that Williams took 9 of last year. 9 touchdowns last year, folks. So a lot of opportunity in that offense. It's a good offense. We'll talk about Tyrod Taylor later.
Speaking of Charles, you brought up Charles. I think he went way too late. I think that's Verdi got a steal in the second round. I would have personally taken Charles ahead of Freeman, Lacey. I would think about McCoy. I even thought about him at the 3rd pick in the second round.
Right.
I just think a healthy Charles is a top 5 running back.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's a product of guys in the back end like myself getting worried about not having a number 1 receiver. Yeah. And by the time you got to this anyway, you didn't have a number 1 receiver. You're really relying on a 2 to be your 1.
Right.
So it fell into Verdi's hands at a good time. I would certainly agree with you on Freeman. We know the numbers, folks. They've been pounding in your head. Yeah. He was terrible for the second half of the year.
Better than Charles?
When I own Lacey and he was hot, he is a pivotal part of that offense. As long as he's in shape.
And they say he's in shape this year.
He's in shape. He's bursting through the hole. His yards after contact are through the roof. Yeah. Higher than Matt Jones. Yeah. I really got no problem with Lacey there. I think it's a total toss-up between them. If anything, honestly, with Charles, I worry, again, about the injury, and I worry about I think Spencer Ware could do some things at the goal line.
Spencer Ware hasn't made any noise this offseason. I feel like
I'm hearing through the grapevine that he's having
through the grapevine.
Pretty impressive
I gotta get on that grapevine.
He's been dominant. He was dominant last year in action. He basically pushed Charkandrick West for second back duties.
Well, what are we worried about? What are we worried about with Ware? That he's gonna get red zone? Because Charles is the red zone weapon. When he was healthy, they threw to him and ran to him religiously in the red. Like they had Kelsey, they have had other guys. They don't care. They go to Charles in the red zone.
You gotta think, even if Charles shows any signs of wear during the year, they're gonna put in Spencer
I think
as a spellback.
The days of 20 carries for him are over. I think he'll have a great season.
He's ever been a 20 carry guy.
That's true.
He's a 20 touch guy.
20 touch.
But it's
but what he does. I mean,
it's what he does with the touches.
Right. I don't know. I think there's going to be some hesitation by Reed to protect him. We'll move on from Charles. Nothing that crazy. I mean, we can talk about Cooper. I know some people are down. I get it. Derek Carr's under the hood numbers are terrible.
Yeah.
Everyone talking about the YPA. Tough pick for me. I probably could have gone Watkins. You could argue he could have gone Jeffrey. The injury scared the bejesus out of me. Probably could have gone Cobb there too, honestly. And an Aaron Rodgers revival rear. He's got Jordy back. But you know what? I'm a Raiders fan. I got stock elsewhere. I'm a believer. I'm just gonna go for it. Okay. I go Cooper there, and I think the red zone stats are a little bit of a fluke to me. We've seen 1 year. Something's got to change. I just don't think we're going to see a repeat of 1,006. He's not going to deal with the plantar fasciitis. I think the Raiders are a good team. I mean, everyone's talking about all the defense.
Are you not worried? He could potentially be the 4th option in the red zone for them, behind Crabtree, who's a bigger, more complete receiver still, Latavius Murray,
and Clive
Walford.
Yeah, the Raiders, they talk about using their tight ends literally every year. And they never do. How much hype did you hear on Mycel Rivera?
Right.
Yeah, well, we're talking about Clive Walford here.
Half the people who are drafting out there don't even know who he is.
Well, that's the problem with half the people out there.
I get it. It's a questionable pick. It's certainly up in the air. It's no guarantee. So Troy rounds out of the round. And then we're going to probably go to our first, I guess we can call this the first reach of the draft. Indante Moncrief starting round 3.
Yeah.
What do you think? I love the kid this year. But I want to hear from you guys.
I think a lot of people are high on Moncrief. I know I was high on Moncrief. How can you not be? You're hoping for a healthy Andrew Luck. Moncrief takes a step forward from last year. He played very well with Luck last year.
Right.
People say he's a better talent than T.Y. Hilton. I could buy into that. So there's a lot to like. But for drafting is not about. I mean, it is partially who you like, but a lot of it's mostly about value for me.
Right.
And I mean, Troyler's in a tough spot because he's picking at the turn.
That's right.
And he's not gonna get Moncrief if he waits.
You have to. You just got to go for the guys you like at that point.
So he pulled the trigger, which I respect. Troyler is a guy who, when he likes a guy, he goes for it, and I admire that. Jeremy Hill,
pick 5 last year. A little questionable. Though to be fair, basically everyone in the first round was a total bust last year.
Yeah, it was rough.
So
it was rough.
That's.
But even saying that, even if I'm high on Moncrief,
a little early for your taste.
I think I'd take every receiver in the third round. Every other receiver that got picked in the third round, I'll run through them for you. Demaryius Thomas, T.Y. Hilton, Jarvis Landry, Julian Edelman. Little question mark there. I'm high on Golden Tate. We'll get into that in a little bit. And Eric Decker. I think I'm going all those guys.
I think the good starting point is Demaryius probably going to give you exactly what he gave you last year. He was playing with one of the worst quarterbacks.
The quarterback situation can't get any worse for him.
Right.
And he got a ton of targets.
He's still going to be peppered more or less. He finished as, I believe it was the wide receiver 12 or 13. That means Troyler really believes that Moncrief's going to be a top 10 receiver.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know. What is his line? Maybe is he thinking 1,200, 8? Maybe the price warrants it. I don't know. That's high.
The thing is,
that's probably
you look at his roster construction so far. He's got Brown.
Right.
Then he takes Cobb and Moncrief at the turn. So he's hoping one of those two pan out.
Right.
To give him wide receiver 1 numbers or wide receiver 2 numbers. I think both of them can do that. So really, he's built a good wide receiver core here.
Certainly.
I think the bottom line of his pick here is that he saw significant more upside in Moncrief than any of the running backs in that round. Because I think deep down, he's looking to take a running back there.
You think he wants a running back there?
I think so.
Well, let's go into the running backs. Let's see who's still on the board for him. He had Doug Martin, DeMarco Murray, Thomas Rawls, Latavius Murray, Carlos Hyde, and C.J. Anderson all picked in the third.
Right. I mean, to be fair, at this point, all those guys have their fleas. I don't even know why we think there's fleas with Doug Martin. I was
going to say, what's the flea with Doug Martin?
I don't know what the flea. I think
just the fact that Charles Sims is there and he's a good passing down back.
I think people think that Doug Martin doesn't catch any balls.
He catches a decent.
I think he catches enough.
Over 1,500 yards last year.
Yeah,
he was unbelievable.
I think he's the number 2 rusher in the league. And the problem is he only had 6 touchdowns. And I talked to you about this.
Jameis Winston
poached
6 touchdowns.
And I do not think he's going to do that again. I think at least 2 of those, maybe 3 of those touchdowns go to Martin.
Yeah. And that's got to push him, I think, back into where he should have gone back into the second round.
So at this point, Verdi's actually had a really good draft so far.
I like the value you got on Martin. Right. I like the value you got on. You know what? I like that pairing too.
Right.
It's
because for me, Martin has the floor. He's safer. He's got his job. There's no injury concern with him really. And then Charles, we already touched on what you get with a healthy Charles. And then he's got Odell in the first, who I think could finish as the number 1 receiver, maybe even player. So
right.
His squad, for me, is looking good after this.
I mean, if you get a full healthy season out of Charles, he's top 7 overall.
Yeah, I agree.
Even with the all these new, not necessarily new, but all these running backs who are in new situations, and have a lot of potential for growth, like Lamar Miller, Elliott coming in, Gurley only getting better.
Yeah.
I think Charles, full healthy season,
Yes.
probably going to finish above most of those guys.
Yeah. Right.
But it's that risk with those 2 ACL tears. It's not a burden a lot of people want to take on.
Right. Okay, so we like Verdi's team at this point. I mean, I don't think you can fault Sean at this point. I think Alshon went in a good spot. I think Demarius in round 3 feels good of a 14-teamer.
Yeah.
So I got no issues there.
He should be happy with that. He should be happy.
I mean, Demarius as your 3 and a 14-teamer is good.
Yeah.
However, you got to make sure you get your running backs and your quarterback situation right. We'll see. We'll go into that a little bit later.
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll go into that later. At this point, honestly, I really don't have many problems with the many. I took Landry, whatever, 100 catches. It was a safe pick for me. I could have easily gone Golden Tate. I could have easily gone Decker for the touchdowns. Both of them just all floor. That's the 3 of them are just floor, which is perfect for the 3rd round. I think the only thing we really need to talk about in this round is DeMarco Murray.
Let's.
I just don't know, and correct me if I'm wrong, he went right before Thomas Rawls?
He went right before Rawls and Latavius Murray.
I don't know. 31 years old. Efficiency per carry was a disaster last year. And I know if you watch those games, I mean, to me it felt like he was just getting penetrated in the backfield almost every time.
Yeah.
But the Eagles' offensive line, through Pro Football Focus, is a top 5, if not 10. I didn't.
Not anymore.
Not anymore.
They're down. Yeah,
they had
down
some injury
here.
bugs
Yeah.
coming through that line last year.
I think there was no excuse
the
for
Tennessee
his
line
performance.
is worse.
That's
Tennessee line
the
is
next
worse.
point is there's nothing to make you believe that this year DeMarco Murray deserves to be picked over Rawls. Now I don't know. Maybe there is. Maybe he likes Mariota. Maybe he thinks that offense gets moving in. There's a lot to like about Marcus.
I was gonna say I agree and disagree with you there. I like Henry. I actually think Henry will end up helping Murray. Maybe not so much in the red zone, but I think he'll be a nice complement there. Even though they have somewhat similar running styles, but as you said, Mariota definitely is going to open up that offense a little bit.
Right.
And they got some wide receiver talent. They got my UMass guy Taj Sharp in there, who's the guy who's catching everything this preseason.
I don't mind Murray. I mind where he took him.
Yes.
I'll go back to Murray's ADP is right now on Yahoo at least.
Mm-hmm.
If we round up, it's the 52nd pick overall.
Okay. And this was
And he
picked.
took him as the, let's see.
This
I mean,
is,
the early 30s.
30.
yeah, mid
34.
34.
So that's almost 20 picks ahead.
Right.
He could have got him in the next round, I think,
Absolutely.
pretty easily.
Absolutely.
Next to a bunch of running backs that profile a little similar.
Right.
They have been running. He has been running well, I believe, in the preseason. They're talking about this exotic smash mouth crap offense that they're going to run. I like Mariota. I like the surrounding pieces. They brought in Rashard Matthews, who I do like. And I think they brought him in to be a workhorse. But right there, value-wise, I'm not buying the value on that.
Right.
I don't necessarily love the value either, but I do admire the pick. As we mentioned before, you have to go through this draft strictly based on the format and the size. The size is a major key there. When you like a guy, and I think this relates back to your Landry pick.
Right.
Because, if you go off ADP, Landry's going way later. But in our format, in our size, you're not getting Landry on the way back.
Right. Yeah, and like I said, I mean, that's a total toss-up with the next guy. I mean, we can look, the next tier of receivers, I think, would have been, again, Edelman, Tate, Decker, and Macklin.
That's the
would
thing.
all
You
been
have
in
a
that
lot of
conversation.
high floor guys
Right.
going right here. Those possession types, I guess you can say.
Right.
And I think I would have preferred one of those over Murray at that point, because you look beyond into the 4th round, you get a Doug Baldwin, a Macklin, Michael Floyd, Jordan Matthews, and then the rest are running backs, tight end going there.
Right.
But those guys are the end of that tier, I think, and that's where you kind of want to jump on at the end of a tier like that, so you secure one of those guys. Murray, I do believe, would have been there for him in the next round.
I agree. I think Nick probably had his sights set on Latavius. Again, volume.
Yeah.
I mean, he was basically average the entire year last year. He had no blow-up games, but because of the fact that he's literally touching the ball 20 to 25 times a game, and now the rate is getting better, they want to run it more at the end of games. He's not going to kill you, and you cannot get killed with these 3-point weeks. These 1 point. You can't do it. So Nick goes the volume there. I like Rawls for Zolby. However, just note at this point, he has literally 0 wide receivers, 14-teamer. We'll see if it worked out for him. Again, Edelman goes, Tate goes, who we like. Hyde goes to Cody.
I just want to touch on Tate real quick.
Let's touch on Tate.
My hand was forced on this pick because you.
What was our conversation?
I like Marvin Jones.
Because I feel like we had a conversation.
Oh, we did.
Because we did a mock draft together.
Yes, we did.
And I picked Tate. Where did I pick him?
I don't know.
Was it at the end of the third round?
I didn't like it, though.
In this same spot. And I got destroyed for it by this guy. This guy destroys me. And then he hops on the wagon, calls me before his pick. Again, this is the second round in a row he's called me. Says, sorry, I'm going to take Tate. I said, what? Tate's my guy. And then you pull the trigger on him. That one stung.
At that point, I didn't have many options left. I'm not taking Decker as my number one. I love Decker to death, but he's just.
I feel like I can't talk
Were you hoping Landry fell?
I mean, during that same mock draft, I had explicitly said to you that I was going to try and reach for Landry in the third round, and you beat me to the punch.
I think we all would have been happy. I mean, you and me would have been happy if Landry fell to us.
Very.
Right.
I would have been happy if any number of these receivers fell to me.
Definitely.
Where I was. I would have loved to get Decker in the fourth and paired him with one of those other receivers, but obviously that wasn't available to me. So I had to pull the trigger on in the third round because I was now about to take C.J. Anderson or Cam Newton.
Right, and I mean, you obviously paid full price for Decker, but
full price.
I mean, paying full price for a guy who's probably one of the most consistent guys in the league, whether it's either yards for the game or he's getting a touchdown.
Yeah.
He had literally 80 yards or a touchdown in every single game.
And
now they're talking that they're going to utilize him more downfield. He's got another year in Gailey's system. People forget that Eric Decker was a downfield threat in Denver.
That's right.
He's just an all-around...
It's a scrappy white guy gym rat. I mean,
and we're going to see a trend develop with my team, starting with Eric Decker. And I'll get into that for you in a bit.
Okay. So, we'll go through this quickly. Ronnie took C.J. Anderson. I don't want to go into it too much. He's got his fleas. You know the potential.
Yeah.
But we're also thinking this offense is going to be either run by Paxton Lynch, Mark Sanchez, or Trevor Simeon. How do you even say it, guys?
I think it's
Simeon. Okay. So,
Simeon.
Point is, whatever. Ronnie had to take it. I don't even know, honestly, that there's any running backs that maybe were better in that spot.
No, it was a great spot for him.
It's a good spot for him.
Anderson.
He has to go there.
Has a high ceiling, I think.
Right.
But I want to talk about Ronnie's team to this point.
Okay.
He goes Robinson in the first. Then he goes to Alshon. Then he gets... excuse me.
Keenan Allen.
Then he gets Keenan Allen.
Right.
Then he gets Anderson.
Right.
I like it.
It's a great start.
I like it a lot.
He's got
to get Anderson in the back end of the third like that.
Right.
Who could be an RB1 this year?
I honestly,
I
I probably
pretty good shot at saying.
I think I like Anderson better than Latavius. I think.
I would agree with
now
that.
that Ronnie Hillman's out of the picture,
Your only worry with CJ.
Booker, but
your worry with CJ is that the quarterback. I'm going to kind of contradict myself to what I said earlier because I said the quarterback situation couldn't get any worse, but if the game scripts kind of change this year, where they're not in tight games and the defense maybe takes a step back and is not elite,
Right.
They'll be very good, but maybe not as good as they were last year.
One of the most dominating defense we've ever seen.
And they're playing, a touchdown behind, 2 scores behind, a little bit more often than they were last year. How does the game script change for C.J. Anderson? I'm curious to see. But the good thing is, I think he's still involved in the passing game.
But are you nervous at all with Devontae Booker coming in? They're talking
No.
that literally all this guy does is catch passes. He's not a true runner.
I'm not, because I haven't seen him on the field. He doesn't have. It's not like they invested a high draft pick in him. They didn't pay him a lot of money. C.J. Anderson has shown us when he is the guy.
Yeah. He can be a bell.
He can be very good.
Yeah.
He can be very good.
But does he have the biggest question, which nobody really knows, is does he have the durability to be a true workhorse?
Oh yeah. I mean, you could say that about any number of guys and running backs.
I think it was it's a relatively common theme with this year's draft, because there are a lot of newcomers coming into big roles.
Sure. All right, well, let's keep it rolling.
We'll keep it rolling. First quarterback comes off the board at the end of round 3. Any issues with that?
I think he's severely regretting that at this point. I think he started regretting that. Who picked him? Who is this?
This is C.J. Middlestat, who, big ups to him. He came in
Thanks
there,
for coming in.
1 day
Yes.
notice to take over for William Perez, who, that hurt.
I think he started regretting this pick around round 5. Rodgers and Luck go in round 4.
Right.
We see Roethlisberger go in round 5. And then we don't see, Brady goes in the 7th. We're seeing one quarterback go in each round after, from 5 on.
Right.
And we'll let's just jump into it now. Let's talk about
it right now.
Value. You get Cam in the 3rd. First of all, that's not value. You're paying for what he did last year.
Right.
He's not going to score 10 rushing touchdowns again.
His line screams regression.
Passing wise, he could put up the same numbers.
30 touchdowns.
With Benjamin
totally
coming back,
yeah.
Absolutely.
I can see him doing
coming
that.
into
It's not that his passing numbers were that.
No,
they were very good. He's a very good passer.
Yes.
Right.
But
everyone's thring 30 touchdowns
at this point. You're paying
for him
for the rushing touchdowns, because that really what set him above everybody else. But with the guys still on the board, Christ, the quarterback's down the road. Well, there was a while in the draft I remember looking, and I think the top 8 to 10 guys on my draft screen. Granted, Yahoo's rankings are a little skewed, but they're all quarterbacks, and you got all these skill guys going in front of you. And we start a lot of guys. We have a quarterback, 2 running backs, 3 receivers, 2 flex spots, and a tight end. That's a lot of spots to fill. When you invest a quarterback that early, you're basically subtracting an impact player from one of those other spots. That's the way I see it.
Right.
Meanwhile, I'll point out you here. You waited. I know. I waited. You waited. Alex, you waited. You got Stafford in the 11th. Who did you got? Matt Ryan in
13th, maybe.
I'm not even scrolled down far enough. The 13th.
Right.
I got Tyrod Taylor in the 10th.
And Romo in
the 14th, and there are still
viable
quarterbacks on the waiver wire who you can plug and play.
Carr,
no problem.
Mariota, Winston,
right.
Dalton, all on the wire.
Carr is playing in New Orleans week 1. We talked about how we might think he's not that great this year, but that matchup,
that's the best matchup you could ask for.
That's the best matchup you can ask for, and I have no problem. I even thought about drafting Carr in the last round because he's a better matchup than Taylor week 1. But I'm saying is look at all those guys on the board that you're passing out. You're passing out Macklin to be your RB3,
right.
and that would Oh no, his RB2. Excuse me. He could have had Le'Veon Bell, Marshall, and I love that start. Even with Bell out for the 3 games, I like that.
Right.
But that's what kills me even more. You're gonna miss Bell for 3 weeks.
He's gonna miss Bell for 3 weeks. Yeah.
Fill that spot. Now your first 3 weeks, he's gonna get crushed.
It was probably a great spot for Macklin there, maybe Michael Floyd, and I think he's gonna regret that because the fact of the matter is, for a deep league, there's still some really good receiver cores. This is probably one of the worst in the league. Baldwin as your 2, Willie Snead as your 3.
Yeah, I mean,
solid.
I don't mind Snead. We
don't mind him, but what you
where
left
did he get
out
Snead?
there?
Where did he get?
He got Snead.
He got Snead.
You got him in the 8th round.
His
I
price.
think that's okay.
No, that's fine.
Okay.
But I think
it's good actually. For
um.
Snead. But yeah, I've just never been a fan of doing the quarterback early thing, man. Because you saw so many guys drop, dude. Where did Carson Palmer go? That was the biggest one for me. That I was shocked how far he fell.
Right.
But it seems like everybody got their quarterback in a round that they were comfortable with. You know what I mean?
There wasn't a lot of urgency
in
drafting
there were
quarterback.
no quarterback runs.
With the exception of Middlestad's pick there. I think.
You saw Cam Newton, and then Ronnie jumped on board 2
Yeah,
picks
I mean, it
after
definitely it caused a bit of a QB run, if you will. We saw Rodgers.
A
we
run
saw
on
Wilson,
the
we
elite
saw
guys.
Watt. Sure.
A run on the elite.
Yeah,
which is expected.
Right.
To an
Sure. But I think even round 4 for me, round 5 is when I would have started considering. Like if Breeze had fallen to me at the back end of round 5, I would have considered it. Not saying I would have done it, but it would have been in my mind because I do like Breeze this year. But for me, there's just too much value on the board earlier than that, and we have too many spots to fill outside the quarterback position to go with QB early.
And that's what happens when you play with 3 wideouts, 2
That's
running
the
backs,
thing,
and
is
then
that
another
the
2
skill
flex.
positions are very
Yeah.
good. We have to start a lot of guys, and
Because that drop off from the average flex player to the below average flex player is much more significant than from a Cam Newton to an Eli Manning.
You
can
can't
get
just go
5
to the
rounds
waiver
later.
wire and pick up a replacement receiver or pick up a replacement running back. You can absolutely do that with quarterback.
You can play quarterbacks based on matchups. I remember last year I picked up Bortles in week 6 maybe, and he started for me pretty much every week down the stretch.
That's right.
And that has nothing to do with him. I don't even think that has anything to do with him being a great quarterback.
No.
That was just the matchups and the scenarios that played out. You can play if Jaguars are playing the Colts, they're getting into a shootout. They're playing the Packers, they're getting into a shootout.
It's every game.
It's just the game scripts, and you have to be aware of that stuff. And I think that contributes more to the quarterback position, probably more than elsewhere, I'd say. But let's move on.
Yeah, so we're going to pick up the pace a little bit, folks. We're going to jump to the back of the 4th round now because, again, I think this really stands out to me.
Yeah.
I think we all agree there's probably 3 picks that maybe they want back, maybe they don't. I know I certainly wouldn't have made it.
Yeah.
And it starts with Sean making his first of several, I think, bad picks of the draft. It's Melvin Gordon in round 4.
Yeah.
This is
a bit of a head scratcher.
This is a pick going, I think, solely off what experts have been saying all off season. They love Melvin Gordon. He's gonna have a bounce back year. This and that. Well, I think it goes right back into team scenario. Chargers are gonna be playing from behind a lot. Melvin Gordon's not catching balls.
I can get behind that. I'm going to try to get into Sean's brain for a second right here. You look at his first 3 picks. He goes Julio, he goes Alshon, and he goes Demarius.
Right.
Maybe the best receiving group.
Yeah, I think you're looking at 110 catches from Julio.
So round 4, I don't think you would want to go receiver again. I think he's targeting his
hand is
top
forced
running back.
back. That's for sure.
Because if you're
and
not
you
taking a running back
right before him, you see Forte go, you see Ryan Matthews and Jonathan Stewart right before him.
Right.
So he's let his board.
His panic set in.
I think maybe
There's a big drop off, but I think there's 2 guys. maybe 3, maybe 4. I think we could say 4 or 5 guys that could easily go on right there to him. And I think number 1 is Jeremy Hill.
Yes, I agree. I would have liked Jeremy Hill in that spot. I thought that's Nick that got him in the 5th. I thought that was a huge steal for Nick in that round.
Right.
I even like Langford over.
Over Gordon. But really, I understand the pick on his behalf.
The options
I don't love it though. That's
getting
one of those
limited.
situations where your hand is kind of forced and you're not doing what you want to do.
That was the Golden Tate pick for me.
Right. But I'm sorry, guys. I'm gonna keep calling out running backs. I'd rather have Ivory than Gordon. I'd rather have Bernard. I'd rather have Gore. I'd rather have Duke. I'd rather have Hill. I'd rather have Jennings. I'd rather have Langford. Hell, I'd rather have Justin Forsett.
Yeah,
I don't know about that.
4 rounds later, though.
Where was Gordon's ADP? I'm curious. I'm gonna look it up.
Yeah, and I would certainly rather have LeGarrette Blount.
Blunt is interesting because you hear in different reports on him every day. Some people are saying he's not even gonna make the roster. Some are saying he's gonna be exclusive red zone goal line guy.
He's making the roster, and he's getting you 10 touchdowns. That's what he's getting you.
One would like to
now
think.
Dion's out. That script changes a little bit because you do not have an equal replacement with James White. James White is not Dion Lewis.
No, but
you've
seen it a million times before with the Patriots.
It's Bill Belichick. Tom Brady. They do anything
put
with
in anybody they want in that spot, and they could catch 5.
They tell them to do their jobs, and what do they do? They do their jobs.
I feel face to face, I want Blount over Gordon. I really just do not like Gordon. It's bad.
But here's my thing with Gordon. He scored 0 touchdowns.
0
last year,
touchdowns.
Right? Okay. He's not going to score 0 touchdowns again.
So what is he
going to
get?
Primary
3?
Ball carrier.
He's not in the game in between. Once
I
you
get
get
that.
to the 20s.
I get that. That's why I drafted Woodhead. But even if he scores, I don't know. Even if he scores you 4, 5, 6 on the ground, you don't think he can get that?
He reeks of 800 yards, 2 touchdowns.
So you think
not a good 4th round
pick.
So
you think he's more of like an Amira Abdullah type?
Correct.
Okay.
A guy whose role is very shaky at best.
Between the 20s.
I don't know. But yeah, between 20s.
It's very frustrating to own.
Correct.
I think San Diego having Travis Benjamin and Keenan out on the field, almost all the snaps, I think it allows for Gordon to play a little bit more, and maybe for Woodhead to take. I definitely am not going to say a back seat, but I think they're going to be sitting. They're going to be sitting in the booth next to each other in the second row of the minivan there.
I don't know. I think Woodhead's playing time stays where it's at. I think he's shown.
He finished with the most catches of any running back last year, folks.
Yeah,
and
he had over 100. He had over 100 targets.
That usage
and he even
is not
contributed.
going
He had
down.
100 carries as well. I think he's the red zone guy.
Right.
And beyond that, he's the third down guy, and I think Philip Rivers has a lot of trust in him. He's a smart guy.
Right. So you've got your 2 scrappy white guys who are basically good for 10 touchdowns each, which I love.
Yeah.
Maybe it's aggressive to say Woodhead's good for 10 touchdowns like Decker is, but it's certainly not a fluke. The guy gets the ball in the red zone.
Yeah.
So
you got to think his floor is 7 touchdowns,
right?
Which you
totally
have to love in the 7th, 6th round.
Right.
I mean, in healthy seasons, with San Diego, 2014 was a wash for him. He played only 3 games, but he's gotten 100 carries. He had 98 last year. I'll call it averages out to 100. He's getting 100 carries a year. And looking back, 2015 and 14, he had 106 targets last year. He had 87 targets in 2013. Was on 76 catches. He had 80 catches last year.
Right.
I mean, that's a lot of balls, and that plays really well in our format, and that provides you with a nice, safe.
Absolutely.
The thing is, they're lining him up in the slot too.
Yeah,
Right.
I
I
think
mean,
they
he's
could-
all over the place.
They could get wild and crazy with.
I've been a big fan of Woodhead
with
for a long time now.
First time owning him this year too. It feels good. It does. It feels good.
It is a good feeling because he's like you said, he's a safe guy.
He's just a greedy guy.
Yeah, you know what you're getting.
You know,
at.
remember when he was a Jet? We really screwed that one up.
Yeah.
Wait, the Jets
The
screwed
Jets.
something up? Oh man, shocker.
He was at
Real
the
shocker.
Jets his rookie year. And I felt like he had a little bit of momentum with the team. I don't know who was in charge back then, but they're obviously not in charge
2009,
anymore.
that smells like Eric Mangini.
Yeah, Mangini, Tannenbaum.
That's a Mangini move right
You
there.
guys kind of blew it. Sorry, boys. Yeah, and then of course he jumped ship, went to New England, and proved he was fantastic. And now he finds himself obviously in San Diego.
That
on the
is
West Coast.
such a typical Jets Patriots
Yeah.
series of events there. Jets dump someone, Patriots pick him up.
And he's great.
He's an all-star,
And he's great.
and his career is forever propelled into space.
Okay.
Here's
keep
what
going.
we'll do.
Let's go.
We're going to do this because you guys have been very patient. I hope you're enjoying it so far.
Yeah.
But we've beaten the hell out of these first 4 rounds to death. We're
Yeah.
going to finish off the 4th round, and then let's just move quickly into a brief summary team by team, just a couple player highlights.
Sure.
We'll get you your steals of the draft, your reaches of the draft, and then we'll get you guys out of here and home safe to mommy. Okay, next pick after Gordon was Greg Olson, and this is where I think Verdi's team took a turn.
Yeah,
for the
I
worse.
think he went nosedive with Greg Olson.
I
I
mean,
mean, that's a
I was
pick that
loving
we
it, Vern. I
lose.
was loving
Yeah.
me some Birdie this year until
Odell, Charles,
you went with
Martin.
Greg, bro. You really dropped the ball for me there. Greg Olson, I see regression. I see a healthy Benjamin back.
just losing targets.
I see it. I see a,
And that's-
a,
that's
a
all you-
emerging
that's all you need.
conscious.
That's all you need right there.
now.
And he's only getting
And you're
older.
paying for last year in that spot. And
Full price.
he's not going over 1,000, barring injury.
Right.
I can't see him going over 1,000 yards this year.
Right.
Red zone, he'll still be a target, but even Benjamin's going to cut into that. Even Funches is a big guy. He's a good
Yep.
red zone target. He'll cut into that.
All they have are big
And
guys.
you have
out
Cam
there.
Newton
Right.
who taking red zone rushes away.
And Mike Tolbert might still be on that team.
Don't forget Mike Tolbert. You know, he led me, took me pretty far one year. Not to, when he was back in San Diego.
yeah,
Pretty good
yeah,
guy.
that's
Pretty
right.
good guy. Don't forget Tolbert.
Do not forget. So yeah,
do not sleep on him.
we know what you're thinking there. There was obviously some pretty good value at tight end that came later. Talk about Fleener a little bit later, but even guys like Delaney Walker, Julius Thomas, Gary Barnage,
Yeah, they went with
Dwayne Allen, Martellus Bennett.
Yeah.
I don't know what the thought process was there. Whatever. I get it. It happened, and your team's terrible now as a result of it. But you learn from your mistakes. So we won't do that again. Finally, last pick of the 4th round, Arian Foster.
Yeah.
Again, kind of feels like an interesting pick with some of the other guys that we just named on the board. Honestly, though, it's hard for me to put a number on his final stat line this year.
Well,
whether it's because of injury or whether it's just because of total confusion with is Ajayi,
A
No.
JJ.
a JJ gonna have a role?
I think a healthy Arian Foster is a bell cow for Miami. I think they want him to be that. I don't
Okay.
think they would have brought him in if they had full confidence in Ajayi.
Right.
Ajayi, dating back to his college days, has had injury problems. I believe he has a degenerative knee thing
Right.
going on, which is not
Right.
good.
Hate to see that.
But yeah, obviously the health is a concern with Foster.
Yeah, it's such a good. I mean, I took the plunge last year. You knew he was already going to miss some time. He came back and he did exactly what you were hoping for, which was
Yeah.
7 to 9 catches a game. They
Yeah.
just pound him
Yeah.
and Hopkins a rock. It's absolutely what you love. It pure volume. He's so sneaky out in the open field.
Yeah.
And then what do you know? Injury, done for the year.
I think
Disappoints.
Let's see who did
So-
Triller have up until this point. I think he had. Yes,
That's his RB1.
That's his RB1,
mind
right?
you.
So he's in the same frame of mind as I think Sean was, looking for his RB1, looking for a volume guy.
right.
you can move on to the 5th round and see a couple running backs I think that could provide you with that volume, who are a little bit safer. I know a lot of experts are down on Langford this year. I like him better than Foster.
Right.
Jeremy Hill, I'm going to say again, I like much better than Foster, I think.
On the flip side of Foster's risk there, but he comes with some upside, I think. He can handle some volume.
Yeah.
And at this point for Troiler, I think he's got 3 stud wide receivers. He needs a running back who can exceed the value that he's going to get picked at. I don't know if he's necessarily going to exceed that value at the back end of the 4th, but you got to look. Adam Gase coming in there. Tannehill can't throw the ball downfield for anything.
Yeah.
And Adam Gase likes to feed his running backs the ball in the passing game. Look at Matt Forte. Look at what he did with his time with Gase. And you think Foster is a proven pass catching back? Maybe he'll show some signs of life this year.
Right.
What also bothers me about him though is who he's going to play in the division. I think the Jets present 2 difficult matchups for him.
Patriots.
I think
always
the
have a good
Patriots
defense.
present 2 difficult matchups for him.
Yep.
And the Bills can present 2 difficult matchups.
Yep.
So that's 6 games for me against plus defenses.
Right.
6 games. We play a 13-week regular season, so that's half the season.
Right.
Already, you're having tough matchups.
Yeah.
With a guy.
And the same thing can be said for us with me, with Landry, you with Parker. I mean, that's something to think about for us.
I don't know. I think passing is a little different. I think
I would say the run. You're definitely facing 3+ run defense.
Yes,
it's
sure.
bottom half matchups for half of the year.
Yeah.
Right.
And
I'll go with that.
And you don't want to gauge picks on who they're playing down the stretch, but they're going to be playing some AFC East games down there.
Yeah.
And there were some options that were in better situations there, like Jeremy Hill.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, so here's what we'll do now. We're gonna take a turn each.
Okay.
You're gonna finish summarizing. Take about 20-30 seconds. You're gonna summarize the rest of Troiler's team, who you like, who you don't. Then we'll go one-on-one. I'll take the next team. You take the next team. Okay. So let me.
Troiler's team. Okay. All right. So, segueing off of Foster, Troiler went and backed that up with a nice Marvin Jones pick. I was high on him this year. Alex, I know you were high on him this year. Could absorb a lot of targets over there in Detroit. We saw what he did last year in Cincinnati on his targets. He had 10 touchdowns, almost 1,000 yards. I think it's a good pick there. Kelsey, paid for him what he's worth. Forsett, I like it. Could be a 3-down back. Could be the workhorse. Kirk Cousins, I like as a quarterback. Sanu, good pick. Rest of the draft is kind of a wash, but DeAndre Washington offers some upside. Sanu I actually liked a lot. I think he gets a decent amount of targets. And at that point in the draft,
It's a crapshoot.
you're not looking for much else besides opportunity.
Right. And it's his wide receiver 5.
Yeah.
So I like it.
Yeah.
Verdi, again, you went Olsen, didn't work out. We think yet. And then you went back to Benjamin, who has all the fleas in the world this year. Whether he's in shape, we don't know. Is Funchess better than him? I mean, he's pushing him for his job, according to Ricky Prohl, the wide receivers coach. So it's a question mark there. Kevin White's a question mark. It's his rookie season, basically. So what can you expect out of him? Rookie wide receivers lately have not really had that much success. They usually need at least a year of seasoning. Even the elites like Cooper need a year. So, I mean... Deshaun, I liked it that spot. Vincent Jackson, I liked it. Not really upside guys, but guys that can kind of get you the touchdowns and the volume that you're looking for in late draft. Bortles, compared to what I have, Matt Ryan in round 13 and compared to Bortles at this point, it's not going to kill you value-wise, but it's game script, right? Bortles, I don't know if it's 30 touchdowns in the card for him again. That might just be a run-first offense, so... decent draft. I just really think the turning point was at Olsen. Next up is Sean.
Oh, where do we begin with Sean? This one might take a little more than 30 seconds here. Sean came out of the gates hot at wideout. Julio, Jeffrey, Demarius, you gotta love it. You have arguably 3 wide receiver ones there. Maybe in Julio Jones, a top 3 player overall. I think it is a near guarantee. Then you pretty much fall off of the face of the earth with Melvin Gordon. There's just too many question marks there. Breeze, we can move on from that. You know what you're getting with Drew Brees. He's got weapons. He knows the system. He's a Class A quarterback there. And then arguably the 2 most questionable back-to-back picks in Josh Gordon and Tom Brady back-to-back. So you are giving up on your 6th and 7th picks for 4 weeks of the season there, and I don't know who you fill in there. There's just so much to.
I want to jump
in
here. Yeah, Sean, sorry, dude, you had the worst draft.
It was rough.
You came out with Breeze and Brady. I couldn't wrap my head around that, and drafting a second quarterback that early in this kind of league. We already touched on how drafting one quarterback early puts you at a disadvantage, but drafting a second before you've even gotten your second running back on the roster, before you have a tight end on the roster, yes, you fill that as receivers. But we're talking about 1, 2. He went Gordon and Brady back-to-back, 2 inactive guys. So you're waiting till round 8 to draft your 6th active player for week 1.
I do want
I think it puts him in a big hole.
Give some praise to him. I like Powell.
I think
Powell pick is great. I think he got great value on Powell.
He saved the running back position barely.
Zach Miller, I think, is going to be a
very
serviceable.
I like the back end of his draft. Yes,
I think that middle is just going to kill him.
I think it's going to kill him.
Those are the picks that make or break
Gordon,
year.
Brady, Ajayi right there and Gordon. I mean, that's Gordon, Brady, Ajayi.
Yeah.
I
think this may lead
disaster.
Sean to spending a lot of money on his budget early. I think he's going to. I know it was briefly mentioned in the draft. He may be forced into making a trade and losing value at the end of the day.
But the thing is,
no one's giving him full price for any of the guys.
Nobody's going to pay.
Absolutely not. This league is too
because
smart.
I know I could just pick somebody
for years.
I'm not paying you for Tom Brady.
And I'll tell you, I'm gonna do a rain dance before we make the schedule, and I'm gonna hope that I can get Sean in the first couple of weeks there, because it's looking like a layup.
Yeah, we'll have to check that out. We'll get that information to you soon. We did slow down severely, so we're gonna go back to blitz fire. There's really nothing to talk about with Matt's team. Ben Roethlisberger, we get it. It was too early. End of story. Matt has a fine team. Whatever. I'm next. Honestly, I could go on for hours on my team. I really think only the ball was dropped with Safarian Jenkins, but again, where you took him, where I took him.
I did hear it today because I told you that I thought Brate had taken over. Apparently, they split first team reps in the last preseason game.
Okay.
So you feel a little bit better about that.
Yeah.
I love your Rashard Matthews to Martellus Bennett back-to-back. I thought were phenomenal.
Yeah, and I'm thinking Bennett can get anywhere near to Hernandez.
I also like Braxton Miller last round, but anyway, let's move on. Irvington, Ryan Dennis.
Or is it Big Ben? Oh no, he was. Oh, it is Ryan.
I'm getting Ryan Dennis here.
Yep, it is. Yep.
I'm looking at his top 5, 6: Gurley, Nelson, Edelman, Forte, Fitz, Diggs. Gates, I think, is very solid. Smith could very well end up being a number 1 receiver in Baltimore again.
I think his team is looking like one big safety net, though. I'm not seeing I'm not seeing a lot of high ceilings.
I don't mind that as much in this league because there's a lot of pickups to be made. And again, I think having a
base.
Yeah, it's not bad. You know what I mean?
I think
he's got solid guys across the board.
Right. I think he did well for himself. I think a lot of it is going to hinge on Forte, though, whether he can really be that guy who's going to be there for the Jets.
Sure.
I think, other than that, though, I mean, a little bit of regression from Fitz. I worry about Edelman, but I think we're all saying.
I like where he got Fitz.
Yeah. No, it's fine. I think it's a floor team.
Zolby.
Solid job. Zolby.
We talked about Gronk.
I think the only thing to talk about here is the fact that
Allen Hurns is his number 1 receiver.
This is the worst wide receiver core in the league.
Yeah, he's gonna struggle. He is gonna struggle.
And
He went
starting over the
Hurns
question mark at running back too.
Hurns in the 5th round. Tavon Austin as your number 2.
man.
I really
He's
don't
going
like
Could
Tavon.
very well fit outside the top 40.
And then
He's
he's gonna
going
be
to
forced
wide
have to
receivers.
pull off a Eddie Kennison, Chad Johnson-esque
He's
pick
gonna have to
in
do
this
something.
year.
He's
Because
gonna
that wide receiver
And
core
then Matt
is looking
Jones
rough.
is looking questionable.
Yeah, I just
This team does not
it was a
inspire a lot of
gro- it was a
confidence
gross
for me.
really gross draft.
Zolby blew it.
Zolby
Point blank.
shit.
Something
Blew
tells
it.
me Zolby didn't do a lot of
Blew it.
preparation for
Ah.
this year.
No,
No.
he did not.
No, he did not.
Oh, move on to Nick.
Nick, what are we talking about with Nick? We
What
talked
can I
about
say?
floor. We talked about volume.
Three-time champion. Next.
Next.
What's there to say? Three-time champ. Everything he did was correct,
Ben.
so it doesn't matter.
Ben kind of blew it.
Yeah.
I like John Brown. I think he got good value in John Brown. I could see John Brown being the top receiver in that offense. Actually.
Right.
I like him a lot.
I still don't have a lot of faith in Jordan Matthews.
I think he really picked it up at the end of last year, though, and I think this is a guy
I think
who's just
people
going to
disrespect
bag targets.
Jordan
Right.
Matthews a lot, to be honest.
I think the volume is just there with this.
Volume's there. He's the number 1 receiver.
Guy. Right.
It's still kind of a shitty team
Right.
with some good offenses in the division. I think they're playing from behind. They're going to throw.
Right.
He's getting over 100 targets, barring health, and I think he's done that the previous 2 seasons. And has he been terrible the past 8 years? No, I think he's been pretty good.
Right.
3rd-year receiver, could take the leap forward. I like it.
Yeah.
I
I like it. I like Brown. I like Thomas.
Yep.
Coates obviously has upside. I like Rivers. I think it was Murray too early, and I don't like Amir Abdul at all. He will not end up on any of my teams.
Yeah, Amir Abdullah's a
5
tough
to
one.
7.
Taking 0 shares in the
He
Detroit
has
Lions.
no goal line.
backfield.
He had right. I mean, I don't know.
We
why
talked
you're
about
sniffing
about
there.
Melvin Gordon. They both have those like between the 20s.
He's not getting goal line, and he ain't getting passing work.
Lions
so
brought
what are you
in.
doing for me?
They still have Zenner, and they
Right.
still have
Ridley.
They brought in Ridley.
Now they're talking Ridley might take some goal line
Goal
touches.
line.
Ridley's gonna get goal line.
And if
Zenner's a big guy.
If Abdullah's not getting the goal line, he's pretty much
He's
worthless because we know they have Riddick as
Riddick
their-
is catching
their
every
passing
pass
back.
out of that backfield.
All right, next.
Next is our first guest,
This guy.
Alex Waldman. I mean, I don't think we have to beat around the bush. I think he had a great draft.
I think he did great considering he took all my picks.
Yeah,
I'm just
the questionable phone of friends.
Yeah,
were,
I was on the phone with him probably for 97% of this draft,
minus 94.
guiding him through it. So penny for your thoughts.
Penny for-
little food for thought.
No, I mean honestly, there's a lot to like about this team. There's a lot to like about every player. Every player has either great floor, the Macklins, the Tates, the McCoys, and the upside, the Elliots, the Fleeners, the Corey Colemans, the Benjamins. Got himself a number 1 defense. Kristen Michael's looking good.
Yeah, let's move it.
Let's move it on. Cody, always
Cody said he didn't feel good about this team.
I like his team.
I don't mind it.
I don't mind it
think
at all.
It's solid. He filled out his starting lineup.
yeah.
I think his receiving group is good. I love Green.
Right.
Cooks, I think, is
Great number
solid.
2. Yeah.
Crabtree is. I think he delivers sneaky value still this year. He did it last year, and I think he does it again.
I would have really liked to see Cody wait a couple more rounds for a quarterback.
No, I do, but
I
if
think
you're
it
at
would've
least going to
changed
just
it.
judge
Yeah.
the position, Russell Wilson is my number 1 quarterback this year.
I think he's very safe. The rushing yards have been there year after
Right.
year. I don't even think he had a rushing touchdown last year either. I might be wrong on that, but
I think he threw a couple. He threw a couple in there.
yeah. But
We'll get back to you on that.
but otherwise,
I like Dorsett too
I
as
think
a
he's not a
4. I like Coleman because I think Freeman. I don't know. I don't feel confident.
I
Freeman
know
this
Eric
year.
likes
Yeah,
Dorsett.
yeah,
I
he's a
like
Dorsett
Derrick
guy.
he
Henry.
had 1 rushing touchdown last
Yeah.
year compared to 6 the
Okay.
year
Yeah.
prior.
I thought that was.
I mean, those can fluctuate a little bit, but if he gives you, 4 rushing touchdowns and the passing numbers he gave you last year, especially when he came on,
right.
It's just. I think
second half.
not necessarily tough to gauge Wilson's numbers, but it's tough to gauge that Seattle offense and exactly how they're going to play out every game because they are so balanced.
I think they're fine. I think Wilson's elite.
Yes.
And I don't think that defense is as elite and great as they have been.
I think they can get involved in some higher scoring games.
Score a little bit.
Last few, Eric. I think my sentiments are the same. I think we all felt pretty good about our drafts. I don't think he made any mistakes. Waited on quarterback. All his receivers have upside. 2 elite tight ends between Barnage, who's a touchdown a week. Reed, who's the number 1. Decker, we love. Ingram in that spot, we like. Woodhead, we like in that spot. I don't know. At this point, I don't see your third running back. That's the only thing that potentially concerns me.
Yeah.
Chris Thompson, though.
Yeah.
There's a prediction out there he could lead the running backs in catches, which is totally foreseeable. The Washington backfield is a disaster, and you will see a lot of Thompson on the field. So I do like him as a plug-in flex play. And Noah Shazier, I think he did a great job. We'll move on to Ronnie, who, again, maybe outside of Yeldon, who I'm pretty lukewarm, and Pierre Garcon, I don't think should be rosterable. Deep league, whatever, I get it. But, I mean, you start off Sanders, Allen Robinson. You have Anderson, Bernard, Sims as your running backs, and you got a top quarterback in Rodgers.
I think Ronnie ended up with a very solid team.
It's basically
flexes,
what he always does.
Flexes, I'm not
just a solid.
I don't know how he does it. He comes out every single draft with a solid team.
And he always competes.
Rock
solid.
solid
team.
Always competes.
You know he's finishing the regular season top 5.
Yeah.
You know he's making the playoffs.
He's a playoff
and you
guy.
know that you don't really want to face him in the playoffs.
Right.
I'll tell you what's scary about his team too is he's got those receivers as a base, right? And then you have Rodgers, of course. C.J. Anderson, we talked about him, could be. There's a question mark, but we generally like him. But Bernard, Sims, and Yeldon, for me, I mean, Bernard has value on his own. So does Sims. Yeldon, I'm not sold on. But those guys are an injury away with the running back front being
top guys.
Top 10 guys.
Yeah.
Easy. Sims could be an absolute monster if Doug Martin were to ever miss a week. Bernard would be a monster. And Yeldon, I don't know about stud, but he'd be
still not sold on Yeldon.
Easily
He has
but he's not going to kill
value.
his fourth running back. He's not going to kill him. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, it's a fine pick right there. I'm taking him over guys who come later before it's true. Handcuffs.
Yes.
The McKinnons, the Wares, the what have you. So,
all right.
It's solid job. Last team, Middlestat. I think we kind of beat this team to death. I think it really went downhill with Cam. And that's end of story for me.
Yeah, that's end of story for me too. I think we can close the book on that.
We'll close the book on that.
Although I do like the value you got on James White in the 10th.
Yep. Well,
yes,
certainly. That's fine. And Dwayne Allen, easily 10 touchdowns is totally reasonable. Not easily, but totally reasonable. So that picks him up in the weeks. All right, quickly. You've heard the names before, but we're all going to do our reaches of the drafts, our steals of the drafts, and then our biggest sucker, Eric.
All right. I'll lead it off with my steals. Guy I've mentioned a lot was Jeremy Hill in the 5th round going to Nick. One of my top steals. Later I'll throw another one, Nick, your way. Congrats. Tyler Boyd I really liked in the 11th round. They're saying he has solidified himself as number 2 receiver in that offense. That could lead to a lot of targets. I think he has some upside. James White, I just mentioned, I think he was great. And I'm going to throw one back to Verdi, giving him Jamal Charles at the back end of the 2nd round. I thought that was a great steal for him. My reaches, guys we've touched on before, Ben Roethlisberger in the 5th, Cam Newton in the 3rd. Basically, not waiting on a quarterback, you reached. And then my position player, my reach, has to be Kevin White in the 6th round for me, Verdi. I'm going to hit you again, man. Not high on Kevin White, dude. Yeah, at least not at this point, and not in the 6th round for me. So that's my reach.
Okay. Steals the draft for me. You've heard the names. I'm going with the theme of quarterback. Any one pick in in the 10th round or after, which would be all three of our guys. Tyrod, Stafford, Ryan could all have, big years. I think there's all reason to believe they would have big years. Jeremy Hill, as Eric said. I might be losing sleep over that, the fact that I took Langford over him. But it's up in the air. We'll see. And then, I'll throw it to Ronnie. It's not a huge upside pick, but I thought Emmanuel Sanders for his wide receiver 3. Again, you know what you're going to get there, and I think there was some value there when you got him after those fringe mid-tier.
Perennially,
he's just
underdrafted,
slept on, underappreciated. When he's a great talent, and he's still a great talent. So I think I don't see any reason why he can't be a 1,000-yard receiver with 6 touchdowns, which at that spot
it's fine.
Alex.
All right, so I'm gonna, you guys took a couple of mine here, but I'm gonna piggyback off a little bit. I know you said Arian Foster is a reach. I will 100% agree with that. I think there are just too many options available there where you go with Foster. I see why, but then again, I just completely disagree. So that's that. I like the James White pick a lot. I also like the Willie Snead pick, both from Middlestat there. I think he got great value for both of those guys, and I think they're going to pay off big time for him. I think Willie Snead's going to be a high floor wide receiver 3 every single week.
Right.
I like a lot of your picks this year. I know I've expressed my praise for you. I thought Bennett was a phenomenal pick. I was very much trying to get him in that same round. Unfortunately, it couldn't happen. I think Landry is going to pay off. I wouldn't necessarily call him a steal, but I would say he's one of the... I'll give him a solid pick of the draft.
Okay. I appreciate that. We appreciate you guys for tuning in. And we'll come back at you next week when we go over week 1 predictions.